Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse, your weekly dose of insider DevOps trends, AWS news, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A you can't find anywhere else. It's December 4th, 2024. I'm your host, Eric Osterman. Real quick, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator for AWS infrastructure that helps teams who want to deploy their software faster. And we do this by using our over 200 plus Terraform modules that have been battle tested and downloaded over 100 million times. So if you or your team has been banging your head against with underperforming Terraform, just head over to cloudposse.com/meet. Again, cloudposse.com/meet. Answer a few quick questions and you'll book a meeting with me directly, and I'll show you what things can look like. So how can you maximize today's session? First off, our format is very informal. You can engage as much as you'd like, ask questions. And if you're curious about any of our open source tools like Atmos or our modules, go for it. So for those on the recording, we host these calls live. You can join us by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. Again, cloudposse.com/officehours. I do have one ask. If you find any portion of today's session valuable, share it with your team. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse. Again, youtube.com/cloudposse, and you'll find the recording there in a few hours. So with that said, let's see what the announcements are. This is gonna, if you are not a fan of AWS or and using GCP or Azure, this will not be for you. We're going to be talking mostly about Amazon announcements here because reInvent is happening at the same time, and some really awesome announcements we've been waiting for, I would say, for many, many years to come out. The first one actually that I'm most excited about is actually the second link here, which is the announcement of a proper distributed SQL compatible database. They're not saying it's Postgres. They're not saying it's MySQL. So I'm not sure, like in terms of the SQL.
It is Postgres. Look at the last line of the second
It is
paragraph.
Postgres compatible
Yeah,
offering. Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, so if you are using MySQL, maybe less of an exciting announcement, but finally a proper globally distributed SQL database. This is going to make those deployments simpler. I see skepticism there, Matt, huh?
Yeah, I've dug into this a bit. I think, don't get me wrong. I think it's good. It's definitely a good like first step going forward. But it is definitely not um, active distributed Postgres. There's some like huge caveats in here, like and I know other things. So like as an example, no foreign keys.
Mm,
So clearly, other things like Planet Scale have, succeeded with no foreign keys. And although I think they just introduced those recently, but like they built a huge business on all of that with that thing. But also no views, no like there's a lot of things that are just not
okay.
there when you strip it away.
Okay. Okay.
I get it. It's a perfectly like really good offering in in the right direction. It just is not like for everyone that thinks this is actually a Postgres database and you could just do whatever you want on there, then no. And I think like a lot of the like whatever they're called Postgres extensions that you can enable and everything just don't work on this either. So there's a lot there. Definitely positive, but also a few negatives.
Yeah. And I was a little confused because you said it's not active, but in their
Oh,
marketing.
no, 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 no. I'm
They,
just saying it's not just as simple as turning it on and
oh,
now
okay.
you have an active Postgres database. You have to have trade-offs
Yeah.
in order to use it like that. That was kind of my point. It definitely is active for what it does.
Okay. And known issues here. So before transiting, while you can run create index command. Okay. So sounds like
Yeah, I think the other big one I realized on this is it doesn't support nested transactions either. So you can't like
Hmm.
run large queries that basically like commit and then commit and then commit and then eventually like trickle all the way up. So you can only have a top level transaction.
And this seems like a pretty big limitation for, enterprise users at least, maximum 100 gig tables.
Yeah, although that's default limit and configurable. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, not.
Okay.
Also, that one is also the other one. The maximum 1,000 connections per cluster is also like pretty limiting in large, in large applications that would probably find this type of thing useful. So
Yeah. All right. Next announcement. Let's do
I got
this thing.
really excited about it at first, and then I dug in it a little bit. I was a little less excited, but it's still cool.
Yeah. So in a similar vein, MemoryDB, which is their fully managed version of Valkey, which is the fork of Redis, is now multi-region capable as well. But I have not dug into that yet, which it sounds like it might be worth. Hmm. All right, next announcement. This one I didn't have a chance to look into, Matt. You shared this one with me. Did you look at this any closer?
Um, just a little bit, but like from now, this extended threat detection seems to use like ML algorithms to do a bunch of threat detection, things that were not previously available. So it seemed like it was pretty cool. Like they actually had, and it's free, I think.
Hmm.
So it's basically just like GuardDuty got better. Like that was kind of the TLDR from what I saw there. I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool.
Yeah, no additional cost.
And yeah, I think if you click on that extended threat detection, it goes through like a whole bunch of like the things that um it actually like how it actually works on it. It explains how it all works, which is pretty cool if you kind of read through the whole thing.
Mhm. All right, very cool. Thank you for sharing. Next one was allowing only specific AMIs to run within an account, but I was a little confused because I thought that's already possible with SCPs. So I wasn't, Matt, you shared this with me as well, so I didn't know what the delta was there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you could have done it, but this is actually like a first class um account property basically. And I think even when you search through like the AMI marketplace and everything, it respects this setting.
Mhm.
At least that's how I read it. So it seems pretty cool. Like basically you can just say these are the only AMIs we allowed to be used in our organization. And that's both public AMIs and also like if someone shares, an AMI with your org. So I'm not I don't know that I've actually ever done that with SCPs, so I'm not actually sure if you can do that. So
I could
yeah.
be hallucinating too. So.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but in any case, I just saw the announcement. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's definitely from a security perspective. Um, you know, will make people happier that you can't just spin up any old AMI and then run it within your org because you never know what you're getting. So
Oh yeah, this one is great. So there's been rumblings of this coming for some time. This is finally Amazon's response to like GKE, is it autopilot? So fully managed EKS clusters, basically trying to make it turnkey so you can just set it and forget it. And I was concerned that maybe it or how it was implemented, because you have to dig down into the documentation before you get the details I wanted to see. So it is under the hood using Carpenter. So basically a fully managed EKS cluster that comes up with Carpenter and will help you run spot instances and consolidate nodes and do all of that to save you money. So can't wait to see this make its way into our Terraform modules and components. I'm not sure, a lot of these announcements these days are paired with updates to the AWS provider. So, we might even see this already in the provider, but I have not looked. Has anyone taken a closer look at this yet?
I didn't look at it from a IAC perspective, but I just looked at it from like how it works. And it seems like this should save a lot of headaches as long as Amazon is good at their job.
Yeah. It is. It's been a real beast. Um,
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, there's people reporting that if you opt into auto mode, that it requires the cluster to be recreated.
hmm.
So obviously you can opt into auto mode for the cluster. Like,
Oh, here, without forcing recreation.
well, that's the request.
I'm under pull requests. Um, so it's a draft pull request.
Yeah.
Um,
I think, yeah.
but okay.
Yeah, they added EKS auto mode support 2 days ago to the provider.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to look quickly on my side at the same time you were looking. So if I was saying what you were also seeing, then sorry about that.
So this ties in with another announcement, I believe. I Unless these were the same announcement here. Nope, these are different. So looks like there's a new policy model rolling out throughout AWS. One announcement is Amazon Web Services announces declarative policies. And this is at the organizational level. And then you can also use these with Control Tower. And I guess that's what this announcement is here. Control Tower launches managed controls using declarative policies. So, Matt, did you have a chance to, can you differentiate this between, some of the controls that you can do today through AWS config and SCP?
Yeah, I didn't dig deep enough into this, but what I'm assuming is if you remember not that long ago, we saw that Amazon, I'm blanking on the name, released their own policy language, which is like they
Right.
didn't use
Yeah.
OPA
Yeah.
or anything
Yeah.
else. What I'm assuming is you will now be able to write policies that using that language to be able to then apply them to your AWS accounts in various places. And then obviously Control Tower would be you can bootstrap your accounts with those policies already in place, but I'm assuming you can now you can now put the those policies at at a top level. I can't remember what the heck the name of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
Cedar.
like
Cedar. That's what it's called.
Skeeter, that's what it
Yeah.
was called.
Yeah.
Um,
That I didn't actually see that written anywhere, but that's what I'm assuming is happening based on all this uh
Remember how they spelled cedar?
I think it's CEDAR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's related. Anyone know for sure if that's what they're using under the hood? Or did another pizza box team implement their own policy language?
Yeah, what can I see that other announcement? Does it link you the first one that you had with that one? Does that actually link you somewhere? Documentation, I would assume.
Theater doesn't appear anywhere
Hmm,
in this page.
yeah, that's interesting because it says declarative policies, which would then lead you to believe that there should be some sort of policy engine.
I wish they would at least show you just a little snippet, like here's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think there's right there's a table. Isn't there a table that tells you like the difference between this and SCPs or something? I thought I just saw that. Yeah, so the declarative policies are enforced on the control plane, while yeah, so SCPs and resource policies are at a higher level. So this is basically like at the lower level, but it doesn't actually show you like how to declare them, right?
It's just like a JSON syntax.
Is it? Yeah. Hmm.
There's examples.
Oh yeah, right there. See, after you've created and attached a declarative policy, those two things are linked. I assume that tells you how to create one. No, maybe not. I don't know. Sorry.
Well, I'm sure there will be more about that to come in
Yeah.
future office hours as we dig into it. Oops, I closed my slides there. All right. Then there was this announcement. Let's see here. Matt, you shared this one with me. It looked interesting, but I didn't read it yet.
Yeah, so essentially like what I understand now is that you can group your, most people take their invoices and then they're tagged based on something, and then that's how they do cost allocations. Now you can basically have Amazon generate your invoices based on those cost allocation tags and
Oh,
everything for you. So like each individual like department of your, or business unit
yeah,
or however you're doing it will get their own invoice from Amazon basically, that you have to pay, which sounds pretty cool.
that is interesting.
And I think basically you build them up based on all those things that are available in Cost Explorer, and then you can say like, I want my invoices grouped like this, like this, like this, and then they'll send you an invoice that's broken down that way.
Basically facilitating chargebacks in the enterprise.
Yeah, well, so the way that you now see it grouped by account, instead of just seeing like your consolidated billing grouped by account, you'll see it grouped by your cost allocation, like however you define those blocks of cost allocations in the invoice configuration, which is cool. I just hope they've really tested this really well, and that the sum of all parts only equals 100%. Like if you accidentally do something, you can't exceed 100%. But yeah, that would be
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it goes without saying.
I
Next,
won't be I won't be so mad if the sum equals less than 100%, but if it's greater than 100%, it'd be
it's
bad.
actually only what you've allocated tags to, so
Yeah,
you can allocate it.
yeah.
Wasn't mine. All right. This was an announcement I just saw out of the corner of my eye, and I'm not sure if interpreted initially correctly, but if it is the way I interpreted it, I thought it was pretty interesting. Where on the fly, as objects are updated on S3, metadata can be extracted that are kept in a tabular form. This sounds like they were overhearing our internal ARB calls recently at Cloud Posse, because I don't know, Jeremy Grodberg was just talking about how he wanted to do was implement a Lambda that when we upload it, when the state files were modified, we stored the Terraform output somewhere. So it'd be interesting if this could be used to efficiently cache like all the Terraform outputs for a state file, and then there you don't have to initialize Terraform or do any of those things to retrieve the outputs in a API forward way.
Yeah, and they made an announcement recently about S3 data tables, which is actually like a specific thing for data that's stored in tabular data. And I think it actually yeah, so S3 tables. Okay, sorry. So this is when the metadata is extracted, it's actually stored in one of these. So I think it's like it's in this format, and then you're supposed to be able to use like third-party analytics tools to just read that stuff, directly out of there. So
And that metadata it's not just polluting the file system, if you will, of S3. You're not just seeing like a .metadata file or something. This is
yeah,
associated with an object in some way.
it's basically a corresponding table that
Mhm.
gets updated with the metadata of the objects you write to the S3 bucket. So then you have to query that table to read that metadata essentially.
Is this an evolution of like Athena or an
No, this is
alternative way of thinking about it or doing this, accomplishing the same kinds of things?
I think this is meant to be an easy source for things like Athena and
Okay.
Redshift and all of those things to consume. So like Apache Spark, I know is one of the things that they mentioned about it, but the idea is like it's kind of like self-describing like um what that the data leak that they've been trying to do. Like the idea from this is that you can write data to these tables, but the underlying storage engine is actually S3. It's still in there, but if the data is tabular in format, you can just then query that data like right from S3. So obviously like unlimited scalability essentially for tabular data that you can just read out with an API call or a number of other tools. So I think if you scroll down here, it shows you all the tools um, that like, no, I think in that paragraph right above that, like right there, there's a whole list of things like, yeah, there you go. So it's stored in Parquet format, and then it tells you like a number of tools that you can use to read it somewhere. I remember seeing like on this front page somewhere, it was like, Apache Spark and Redshift and da 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 da, like all these things. There you
Yeah.
go. Athena, Redshift, EMR, and Spark. So you can like easily query this data with all of those tools.
Got it.
And then you can see it has much more it has much higher throughput than just natively storing it and having to parse the data.
It just got my gears turning. I was thinking of how was it Loki works, and Loki is basically at ingestion time breaking out the logs into um, buckets by tags, I believe, something like that. That makes retrieval very efficient. I wonder if this opens up a new era of potential, log search systems that are low cost and efficient. How is this
Yeah,
priced, by the way? Did we see that?
right there, there's a pricing like tab on it. I don't know. So 2 cents a terabyte to store it.
Hmm. That is,
You need a master's degree in AWS pricing to figure it out, half the stuff.
yeah, when you factor in all the dimensions. All right, next announcement. Oh, so previously PrivateLink could only work with like NLBs and ALBs between VPCs, and now this can work with pretty much any resource in the VPC. So you can now have like a team managing your databases, and without needing to use a transit gateway or the like, you can expose that over PrivateLink and consume it in any of your other VPCs.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
believe I saw a different announcement about it, but they announced I think the same exact thing now for Lattice. So you can basically attach any resource from any VPC to like a Lattice network, and then have cross account, cross VPC, etc. Communication built right in as well. So
I'm excited about this if we don't have to leverage transit gateways as much as we are.
yeah.
Um,
Does it still allow for cross-account, cross-region? I
Good
thought the
question.
private link stuff was always in region,
Yeah, that is
and
true.
that's where transit gateway kind of needs to be leveraged.
Yeah,
Yeah.
although I think that the VPC lattice thing, I think that's the one that I just saw. It's just referenced right there. If you go back to that one, VPC lattice, I think that is now you can attach anything in any account in any region to like the service mesh essentially at that point, and then you can set policy about what's allowed to talk to what, and then it goes across there. So it seems like this may become a replacement for Transit Gateway. Like if, but I
Within
guess
AWS.
this is only at at the TCP level, or before it only supported HTTP and TLS. I think now it has full support for all TCP protocols. So I think that was the announcement that I saw. So
And if you need multicast or UDP, then
yeah,
you need
then
transit gateway.
you need Transit Gateway. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's certainly a lot less common.
Sure.
Yeah. I also didn't check out the pricing of that and how it compares to Transit Gateway, but presumably it'll be much less expensive. Yeah, one cent a gigabyte for the first petabyte.
And no runtime charge.
Yeah, no
Oh
attachment
no, there is
charges.
per hour. It's at 1 penny.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the ENI connection cost.
Yeah, which I think it's 2.5 cents for the attachment for VPC Transit Gateway, something like that.
And this price per gig is much less than Transit Gateway, right?
That might be 30% of the usual cost.
Yeah, although there's multiple things. I'm not sure what the gateway, that's a gateway load balancer endpoint pricing.
Hmm.
And then resource endpoint pricing. And if you scroll up, there's a different
Yeah.
something pricing.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there you go, cross-region connectivity pricing.
Well, that's interesting. Can this be done without Lattice then? Is that suggesting that?
Well,
Seems like it
yeah.
is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's news to me. Okay.
Cool.
You're charged for each hour or partial hour that a remote region is active. So it sounds like this is like more automation around setting up transit gateways on their side, or point-to-point VPCs, VPC peering.
Yeah, possibly. All right. That was the end of my announcements for AWS. For the full list of announcements, you can get DOS attacked by going to where was it? AWS announcements, and there are just hundreds of them coming out of reInvent that you can follow. I only went through the first 7 pages.
I think I did see that you had another slide that had some things
Yeah,
on it.
yeah, those are, I'm gonna go over
That's
those.
something different? Okay.
Those are other things going on, not AWS specific.
Gotcha.
Were there other things that you, everyone else was excited about before we change topics?
Eric, I think there was the second to the last comment or add.
Well, from Jonathan?
No, on your screen on the announcements, the second to the last. Did you
My
did you
announcements.
touch base on that one? Yeah.
Yeah, it's this one, I went out of order a little bit. This
Okay.
turns out was kind of related to this one here. So we
I see. Okay, got it.
Thanks though. Yeah. Also, Jonathan shared an example of what that declarative policy syntax looks like.
Yeah, it's custom per service, but it's all JSON.
I was hoping for YAML one, but
Yeah, I guess, it's at least consistent with what they're doing for IAM, which is JSON based. So, and I guess it's JSON 5 since they support comments. Unless that's just creative liberty. All right, well, let's change gears to other announcements. These were more GitHub related. So a minor announcement is some improvements coming to the little status menu at the bottom of pull requests. They're going to start grouping the status checks by their status, so you can quickly see what checks are remaining, what were successful, and what's failing. Sounds like an overall good improvement to me. Also, those are going to be ordered automatically alphabetically. And yeah, keyboard navigation. There was one other thing here I wanted to see it. Well, I saw it. I thought this announcement was a change to when immutable GitHub Actions are going to be available. So it's supposed to be end of this year, and it's moved around a lot. So I guess it could continue to move around. I mean, this was first added to the roadmap for 2 years ago, and yet we're still waiting on it. But the good news is that this had been kicked out until end of next year, and now is back into January of Q1 2025. What this is right now, if you're using GitHub Actions, they basically give whatever that action is doing carte blanche access to your source code to do whatever it wants. And you have to do commit SHA pinning if you want some sanity to ensure that the underlying action hasn't been modified after you pin to its version. The way to solve that is by having an artifact of actions that is pushed somewhere and that you can use. So these immutable GitHub Actions are what should be coming, and it's going to be built on top of OCI. So I guess you'll be calling GitHub Actions via OCI URIs.
Yeah, I don't know if it was this or another one I saw, but I think the canonical way that they're proposing is that you will push it says it right there, that you'll push it to GitHub packages. Right. And then
OCI is part of GitHub packages.
Yeah. And then basically there'll be semantic versioning that you can now say version 3 without, without the risk that whoever owns that repo moves what version 3 points to, and then, you have a problem.
Yeah. So speaking of problems, Solana, which is one of the blockchains that's popular for NFTs and dApps, has possibly been compromised. This was came up in my LinkedIn feed, I think. GitHub has published an advisory that is pretty severe. If Any computer that has a package installed or running should be considered fully compromised. All secrets and keys stored on that computer should be rotated immediately. And yeah, the fun continues, dabbling with the blockchain. Anyone know more about this or what was discovered?
I don't use Solana, so I'm fine.
Yeah, same. Package publishing containing malware that exfiltrates private key material. All right. Other topics? What was that, Matt?
I was just gonna say I recently just came across this, but it happened a while ago. I guess I missed it. I don't know if we ever talked about it, but it just reminded me of like malware isn't always like technology based. So there was a Lithuanian guy that got paid like $200 million from like Google and Apple and all these people just by sending them like fake invoices that looked real enough, and he got them paid. And he eventually got arrested by the FBI or whatever, and like, went to prison, but still, like,
Wow.
imagine how much, just silly things like that. He basically just hacked like their AR systems with like or their AP systems, I should say, by sending them invoices that were close enough to. I think he posed as like a chip manufacturer that was sending them invoices for like computers they were building or something like that. So yeah. Oh, there you go.
That's not new. I mean,
No, no, no,
you,
no.
what I mean new, or that attack vector. I mean, that is
Oh,
so
yeah,
common in APAR systems.
yeah.
Um, that people are basically spoofing, POs and.
Yeah. This was just one I hadn't heard of, and I was like, it was pretty like large, and I think Alex just
200
posted there.
million. Unbelievable that he got that much.
Yeah, and like that he kept going at that point. Like, why are you being
Right?
so
Quit
greedy?
while you're ahead.
Once you get your first 10 million, like, go away,
Yeah.
and don't be
Why would you
stupid about
stop
it.
it? Why would you stop now if you?
Well, because eventually they're gonna catch on,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
I'm like, you got away with it, with enough to live the rest of your life doing whatever you want to do. Like, be happy, don't be greedy. So,
Yeah.
stupid. That reminds there was a scam a really long time ago with at Bank of Boston where people have probably heard of this, where this guy figured out a way that, like, every day they calculate interest, and then when they calculate interest there's always like a rounding like error at the end. So this guy figured out some way to get like the part that was cut off by the rounding deposited into his account, essentially. And he made away with, like, same thing, like, $50 million or something stupid like that. And then he left, but he forgot to turn the thing off. And then the bank eventually got got a notice that the balance in this account was so high that it was like at danger of like putting their FDIC insurance like ratios at risk or something like that. So they checked into like what this account was, and they discovered the scam and traced it back to the guy, but like 10 years after he had done it or something like stupid like that. So,
Never heard of that one.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So I don't know. Every time I hear like these little malware things, it's like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. But as long as people have been alive, I just feel like they've been trying to steal stuff from other people.
All right, well, let's transition to Q&A maybe, if there are no more announcements anyone saw. So any questions we can get answered today? We went through those AWS announcements a lot faster than I expected.
I don't have a question, but do you mention the changes of the GitHub Actions we made for the Atmos actions in a previous?
Oh no, thank you, Pepe. I did forget to announce those. I was blinded by everything going on.
Too many AWS announcements, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. So so with help from Pepe, thank you, Pepe. We have released new GitHub Actions for Atmos that added first-class Azure support. So Azure was in some way supported at some time with some of them, but Pepe has been going through and improving all of them to properly support Azure if you're using Atmos with Azure and GitHub Actions. In addition to so if you look at any one of our GitHub Actions, we talk about how to configure them under integrations like this. And this configuration used to only work globally for all your stacks and all your components that you are managing with GitHub Actions. Well, Pepe contributed a change. So now this also works through the Atmos inheritance model. So you can now override and change this behavior for any of your components and any of your stacks, which is really convenient when you want different roles, for example, for production versus dev versus staging, different buckets for your artifact storage between accounts, for example. So thank you, Pepe, for that. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Pepe?
We have been testing this it's in production already. Yeah, it works really well. The other thing that was added was to skip a checkout. Skip the checkout of all these actions. So if you, for example, are doing something like crazy like I'm doing, where I'm vendoring all the monorepo into another repo of a service repo, and then actually running the Atmos over there, but those files do not reside within the monorepo. In a way to basically share your monorepo stacks of components over all the services repos. You can now pass an option to these GitHub Actions to skip the checkout. So because the vendoring files are not part of your Git history, they're not Git files anymore. They only live within the runner. So you can pass that option to skip the checkout so that you can actually do the vendoring, then run these actions, and it's not going to blow away all your vendor files. So pretty useful, yeah. And we are using Cosmos and Blob storage for storing the plans and the metadata of the plans. And there is a PR over there that is trying to add support to GCP, which is cool.
Yeah. So yeah, GCP support should be coming out this week or next. Someone on our team is looking through those right now and working with the author who contributed those. So really exciting to see the adoption we're getting with Atmos and the contributions that we're getting. So thank you everyone for making this possible. Can I see a hand? Michael, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty good. Hope everybody is doing well. Well, I guess it is kind of a question, but I'll give a little bit of context. So I'm going to be producing some content on Bitbucket Pipelines. It's a tool that I've used for quite some time now, but I'm wondering if there are other folks who, if you have used Bitbucket Pipelines, if there's anything that sort of stumped you or you would like to know more about, or if you haven't used Bitbucket Pipelines, if there's something that you're curious about, or maybe comparison with other tools, that type of thing. I'm just trying to get out of my silo and just kind of see what other people are curious about or have always wondered about, or just might think about Bitbucket Pipelines.
So we use Bitbucket within the company. I personally hate it. And one of the reasons I hate it a lot is because of the mostly because I'm core maintainer of Atlantis, and it's always a pain for Bitbucket users to use Atlantis because it doesn't do what are these calls? These drop-down thingies in GitHub in the Markdown. I forgot details. No.
Oh, detail blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, detail block. It doesn't support detail blocks. So if it creates a comment, the whole comment of the plan gets outputted to the PR. So you end up with thousands of files. So there has been options to delete the previous command that was posted within the PR. So there is very little things within Bitbucket that are so simple that are not supported in Bitbucket, which are supported basically in pretty much everywhere, which makes it a little bit clunky that way. And obviously the pipelines. I remember when I worked with the pipelines, there was very few free pipelines at that time, or kind of like compared with the GitHub Actions side of things. And I don't know if that's actually got any better. Because we usually do not run anything within Bitbucket internally. We use it for POCs because at the end of the day, we end up helping customers in GitLab or ADO or GitHub. So usually we have very little usage of Bitbucket outside of our company. Not many customers use Bitbucket right now. But those are the biggest pain points that I had.
I use Bitbucket and Bitbucket pipelines. I've been extremely frustrated with it since I started. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to pick your brain if you have some better ideas, because it is, I mean, my experience is that there's all kinds of limitations. And then when you Google for, other people having that, you find everybody has the same issue, and there's been an open issue for 5 years that has not been addressed.
Yeah, I will agree that Bitbucket users sort of suffer in silence a little bit, or they suffer loudly, but then nothing is still done about it. So yeah, that's definitely a point that I already kind of keep in mind.
So for example, like trying to run parallel steps, right? It's like there's only like extremely limited configurations in which you can do something as simple as running steps in parallel, which is just kind of blows my mind.
Isn't Atlassian supposed to make only products that people hate?
Apparently.
I mean, I've never heard anyone say I love Jira. I've never heard anyone say I love Compliments. I've never heard anyone say, I've never heard anyone say I love Bitbucket. Like everyone who uses these things seems to say like I have to use them because my company adopted them. I hate it.
Yeah, somebody's mentioning hosted workers or private workers. Yeah, that's been a real, it's pretty absurd, like how those things are deployed and managed.
Or not.
Yeah.
They did not make it easy.
And so okay, so that is something they've added API support. What are some of the positive things I'd like to know? Since there are obviously positive things as well, probably with it, I'd like to understand, what are some of the nice things that you enjoy with it?
Well, one of the things that I enjoy is the environment capability. I mean, it's you'll find it across GitLab and GitHub as well for their embedded CI tools. I kind of like the interface for Bitbucket for their environment creation, the variables that you can store within the environments, and the visualization of what hashtag has been deployed to which environment. It's pretty slick the way that they show what code is where, so you can see your your dev, staging, and production environments and know exactly what code has been deployed to those environments. That's probably one of the key features that kind of pulled me into it.
And variables within environments on GitHub is an enterprise feature. So you have to upgrade to enterprise to do that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it's enterprise only or not, but there's a number of, you can add a selection list for a pipeline job and say, oh, offer the user, a list of different options to choose from, and then hit run, which I don't think GitHub Actions really provides.
Workflow dispatches allow you to run any workflow and give it parameters.
But is it a pull-down menu that you can
Yeah, it's a
predefine
drop-down menu. Yeah.
in Actions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just haven't been over there in that
But you
space in a
can't
while.
populate it with like dynamic values. Like, hey, select the most recent release. Is not an option. That would probably be a free form input then.
Yeah, no, ours is the predefined list, but it's in the YAML, and
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that in action, so I thought it was unique. But
Yeah,
no.
we use that as a workaround when customers don't have GitHub Enterprise and we need some way to promote a release, then we use a workflow dispatch to do that. If they don't have GitHub Enterprise like approval gates.
Makes sense.
Yeah, although it would be nice if it were a first class thing, like where you could have something where you go into like a menu and then click something
Yeah.
and then you can run like with that. This one, like legitimately you have to go find the workflow
Yeah,
that you want to
yeah.
dispatch and run dispatch, and then when you do it presents you with the list of options that you have to input before it kicks off the workflow.
Yeah, it's buried under an ellipses menu for a workflow file. So you're not I say it's understandable if you hadn't seen it.
Yeah, it's definitely not a first class citizen.
One of the Bitbucket does have better organization of repositories, right? It's not just a flat layout.
Yeah, they give you some, well, I mean, there's a few different ways that you can organize stuff, and it's kind of comparable to GitHub organizations, I believe, but they have workspaces, they have projects, and then you have your repos. And within your workspace, you can have multiple projects. Within your projects, you can have multiple repos,
Yeah.
and you can share information across workspaces and projects depending on how you set it up. So yeah, they give you a lot of different ways to sort of organize your stuff there. And that also flows over into Jira, because you could have a Jira project that you can associate with different repositories that belong to different projects.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of what I would say, like segmentation on the code that you want to share with people depending on where they sit in your organization.
I think that's great. I don't know why GitHub just cannot do this or implement this functionality. They've done something totally different now, which is you can have repository properties, and then you can, whip out the advanced search and filter for those in any way, shape, or form. When I think what most people want as, the minimum is just let me organize it by projects and workspaces. But
But yeah, thanks for the input and rambles there. I appreciate it. I'll take all that into consideration.
I came across a new alternative place to run GitHub Actions called Blacksmith. I haven't really I put the link in the chat. It's blacksmith.sh if you're going to just pull it up there. They claim that they ran some benchmarks and it's basically like twice as fast and half the cost, and all you have to do is change your runs on to include like blacksmith and then something like in there, and it works. And they show some pretty large projects like Node and a few other like really large open source projects, like what happened when they switched and like where their build times went from significantly down. And there's some pretty notable people in the tech community on like Twitter and YouTube and all that kind of thing that have endorsed it, but I haven't personally kicked the tires. I just have come across it a few times. What I did notice I thought was interesting is they use those buttons, like those multiple stacked buttons up there, like login, that PostHog uses.
yeah,
Which
I was thinking that too.
yeah. So I don't know if they're at all like related or the people came out of there or something, but
Yeah, just borrowing the design language. Not my favorite button for when it's
Yeah, mine either, but it's distinct.
unique. Yeah,
Yeah.
distinct. Funny. Yeah. Oh man, I just realized, I don't know how it escaped me. Yeah, we obviously we're using PostHog now at Cloud Posse. But I didn't realize it's based on an open source project.
Oh yeah, it's all, you can host the whole thing yourself if you so choose.
Yeah.
It's big, but
Yeah, of course.
what I would say is that their pricing is so incredibly fair that I don't think you would ever want to
You
host it
could
yourself.
never, yeah, you could never beat that pricing
Yeah.
hosting.
But if you have to because of like compliance requirements or air gapping or something crazy like that, then I guess it makes sense. But their pricing is fantastic.
Yeah. Anyone know of open source projects that do telemetry on their products as it's distributed?
What do you mean by that?
Any that they get usage, kind of anonymous usage information on how their open source is being used that you can opt in or opt out of.
Client side usage.
Yeah, client side usage.
I feel like I've seen a ton of them that says like we're gonna send anonymous, metrics back, and you can opt out by doing X, Y, or Z, but I can't
Yeah.
think of who it is right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
there's one that I'm trying to think of right off the top. I can't recall what it is, but it's a PHP based MySQL based app you can self-host, and you basically put a tag in your web pages or your app requests or whatever the case is, and it'll track statistics for. It's pretty much like Google Analytics, like self-hosted Google Analytics.
Yeah. Oh, and not the
um,
technology to do it, more so the prior art. I'd like to understand how they do it, what they do, their messaging around it, and the community response to doing that.
Actually, we actually there was someone in the Atlantis project that actually wanted to see what kind of adoption we would have about adding some telemetry to it.
Mm-hmm.
The idea behind that was to feed back into the survey we did, so to keep a graph of usage of the different VCSs, to add more support and then have more contributors on focus on that, or maybe like talk to GitHub. Hey, can you put someone from your side to there's like 15,000 users that uses GitHub with Atlantis, that kind of stuff. And actually, there is, well, in the case for the CNCF, there is guidelines about that, on where that could be done, but it has to be an opt-in thing. It cannot be an opt-out for sure.
Oh,
there was some pushback actually from a bunch of people, including me, about that. But then the more I thought about it, and the usages of what you can get, it's pretty useful. But I will say that, for example, in the customers that I work with, if that was an option, it will always be off. So the telemetry will be very limited in most of the cases. And I think it's kind of like tricky to just make it true, to enable all the time. And because that kind of goes against the privacy of what the people, because they will have to look into the code to see what we really are exporting to really trust it. I know that you have to document it, but the documents and the code could be different. And then there is a vetting process on that in companies and all that. So it gets really complicated when it goes through like enterprises where, it's not like open source and they're a little bit more closed than open, so it's tricky, but it is legally possible if you have the option. That's what I was told basically at the end.
If you find the issue on the Atlantis project for me and share that on Slack, I'd appreciate it, just so I can kind of prepare myself for what the feedback is. Matt?
Yeah.
The
Homebrew
one that
got
comes to mind, I'm sorry, I was gonna say the one that does come to mind, this came up in another conversation I had recently is Honeycomb IO, but I haven't had a chance to look into it yet for the to open telemetry.
As platforms to do it, but do they do it themselves on their own software?
That's something I would need to look into.
Yeah, so I was gonna say I remember I jotted down a few of these at one point, and Homebrew does it.
Mhm.
You by default it's on, and you have to run brew analytics off if you don't want it to send anonymous usage statistics back. The others that I wrote down, Docker Desktop, VS Code, Next itself does it. Kubernetes actually says that they do it, and you have to configure flags to opt out of it in Kubernetes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of them that because I remember one time we had talked about this before, and I just had to go back and look at my notes. I remember I for a little while after every product I touched for a little while, I went to see is there any analytics in this, and they like a lot of them were turned on. So
Fascinating. I'm really surprised Kubernetes has that. I mean, by proxy of them hosting images, I could see that they could get some of that, but that they have an explicit metrics collection in some way. It's interesting. All right, well, we are at time for today, a little bit over actually. So thank you everyone for your time. We'll be posting a recording of this session to our YouTube channel. So if you found anything interesting and want to share it with your team, that's a great way to go do that. Go to youtube.com/cloudposse. If you're curious about working with Cloud Posse or your company, we can help you out with Terraform in a big way. Go to cloudposse.com/meet. Again, cloudposse.com/meet, and you'll book a meeting with me directly. Here's some other ways you can get more involved in our community. We have our Slack community, which is 10,000 strong at slack.cloudposse.com. We have our weekly office hours, which you're on here today. If you haven't subscribed or registered, go to cloudposse.com/officehours. And then there's our podcast, which is just a syndication of our weekly office hours. So hope to see you guys around. Thank you so much. Talk to you later.